For the second time in the short life of the 8th National Assembly, the Senate President, Senator Bukola Saraki, steps into the dock to face another allegation, this time on the alleged forgery of the Senate rules. This development will form the major point of our consideration this week on the Gavel. I'm Lanre Lasisi, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to the program. Now, even though the National Assembly is on recess, some committees of the National Assembly were still on ground. We also have some events that took place outside the National Assembly. Our first report is one of such events where the issue of constituency projects took center stage.
Amen. And the Muslims among us say,
It is a conference of both states and federal lawmakers designed to brainstorm on the best ways to attract and implement constituency projects. First, the Secretary to the government decries the manner in which funds meant for constituency projects have been abused in the past.
It is true that the government has spent so much on execution of constituency intervention projects in the past without any arrangement for their monitoring, evaluation, and post-implementation review. It is also true that constituency projects have often been avenues for the embezzlement and diversion of project funds in the past. This has led to gross impunity, wastage, early decay, and defeat of the purposes of such projects. President Muhammadu Buhari is determined to correct this because, given the very little resources at its disposal, this government can no longer afford to be complacent in the way it deploys its little resources.
However, the Minister of Power, Works and Housing, Mr. Babatunde Fashola, urges the lawmakers to decide on a framework that will ensure that constituency projects are not viewed as individual lawmakers' projects.
We should pay attention more, first, to those projects that give benefits to the greatest number of our citizens before going to those that affect what we classify as our constituents. And so, Mr. Speaker, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the final point to make is to decide a framework that ensures that these projects are really constituency projects, not the legislators' projects. And I say this in view of the fact that quite a number of those projects that were started as constituency projects never complete once the legislator does not return to Parliament.
Meanwhile, the Speaker of the House of Representatives says lawmakers have been disadvantaged over the years as funding is made available for projects in the constituencies of those in the executive arm of government at the expense of the legislators.
The practice in Nigeria, which the legislators frowned at, is that where you have ministers, directors, heads of agencies coming from a particular place, after the budget is designed, estimates of revenue and expenditures provided for in our constitution, and it is laid before Parliament. Doesn't matter whether it is at the level of the state or at the federal level. And you look at the entire projections, you discover that more monies are appropriated for projects in the districts or constituencies or the zones or the states where the key players in the executive comes from. And in most cases, if care is not taken by respective parliamentarians, you could spend 4 years in the House, in the State House of Assembly, or in the National Assembly without attracting one single project. And we believe that the goal of any government, especially this government of change, must be that of justice and fairness. So there's no better way to ensure this justice and fairness than to ensure that all constituencies enjoy on some kind of basis roughly equal patronage. And the only way you can do that is by the means or through the instrumentality of the constituency and zonal intervention projects.
He also makes some clarifications as to how funds for constituency projects are allocated.
It's never been the practice that members are given the funds themselves and then they decide the projects and who executes them. No. These funds are appropriated, domiciled in MDAs, and the MDAs are, of course, superintended over by the executive. And they decide through the normal laws how these projects are awarded, how they are executed. They decide solely by means of procurement which company is best fitted to execute them.
It is hoped that resolutions from this conference will strengthen the legal and institutional framework for effective management of constituency projects.